The Forbidden Mark. The grand halls of the Zayari Empire's capital were silent as Commander Jace Carter stepped onto the polished stone floor. His boots echoed through the towering chamber, the alien symbols etched into the walls glowing faintly. The air smelled strange, a mix of metal, flowers, and something ancient. He was surrounded by guards, their silver-blue skin glowing under the dim lighting. Their eyes, cold and sharp, watched him like a wild animal on trial. Jace knew exactly why he was here. He was a human, a soldier from Earth who had crash-landed on the wrong planet. And now, he was being judged by the most powerful alien empire in the galaxy. At the center of the chamber, sitting on a raised throne, was Empress Xyra, ruler of the Zayari, a species known for their strict laws and ruthless decisions. And standing beside her, dressed in elegant black and gold armor, was Captain Xyra, one of the highest-ranking officers in the Empire. She was the one who had captured him. But as Jace's eyes met hers, something strange happened. Her breath hitched. Her glowing violet eyes widened in shock. Her hands, covered in dark gloves, clenched into fists as if she was trying to fight off something. And then, her soulmate mark ignited. A golden glow erupted from her wrist, casting soft light across the chamber. A gasp swept through the Zayari nobles watching from the balconies above. Jace had no idea what was happening, but he could tell one thing for sure. This was bad. A mark that shouldn't exist. Silence fell over the room. Xyra stared at her own wrist, her glowing mark pulsing like a living thing. She shook her head, her breathing unsteady. No, this isn't possible. Jace frowned. He looked at the mark, a strange, swirling pattern of golden light, then back at her. "All right," he said cautiously. "Not sure what that is, but I'm guessing this isn't normal." The Empress stood suddenly, her sharp gaze locked onto Xyra. "Captain," she said, her voice dangerously calm. "Explain this." Xyra swallowed hard. Jace watched as she clenched her wrist, as if trying to hide the glow. It didn't work. Finally, she spoke. "It's a soulmate mark." Jace blinked. "A what?" Xyra took a slow breath, as if saying it out loud made it even harder to believe. "The mark only appears when a Zayari touches their fated mate." Jace's stomach dropped. Wait, did she just say? He looked down at his own hands. His skin was completely normal. No glow, no strange marks, nothing. "I think your magic tattoo is broken," he said, raising an eyebrow. "I'm not Zayari." Xyra's face was pale. "I know," she whispered. The Empress's voice cut through the room like a blade. "Then it is a mistake." The nobles murmured in agreement. Jace could hear them whispering. "It's not possible. A human. As a fated mate. This is a disgrace." Jace gritted his teeth. He didn't like being talked about like some unwanted disease. But Xyra, she wasn't just surprised. She was afraid. Her mark wouldn't fade. It kept glowing, defying everything she had been taught. Then the Empress spoke again. "Captain Xyra, you will step forward." Xyra's body tensed, but she obeyed. She walked toward the throne, standing tall despite the weight of the moment. The Empress's violet eyes burned into her. "You know what must be done." Jace frowned. Something was wrong. Xyra's hands clenched at her sides. Her voice was quiet. "Yes, Your Majesty." Then she reached for the dagger at her belt. A choice that changes everything. Jace's instincts screamed at him. He didn't know exactly what was happening, but he had seen this look before. Xyra wasn't about to attack him. She was about to cut off her own hand. Jace moved before he could think. He lunged forward, grabbing her wrist, and the mark exploded with light. A shockwave ripped through the chamber, sending a gust of wind outward. The nobles stumbled back, gasping in shock. The guards raised their weapons, aiming at Jace as if he had just caused an earthquake. Xyra froze in his grip. Her eyes snapped to his. Jace felt a rush of something strange, something deep and electric, like an unseen force tying him to her. For a moment, neither of them moved. Neither of them spoke. Then, the Empress's voice cut through the chaos. "Arrest him." The guards charged forward. Cyrus didn't move. Jace knew he had seconds to decide what to do. His mind screamed, "Run, fight, escape." But something else, something deep in his bones, whispered another thought. "Don't let go of her." And for the first time in his life, Jace listened to his instincts. He tightened his grip on Cyrus's wrist, locking eyes with her, and whispered 2 words. "Trust me." Cyrus exhaled sharply, then made her choice. With a swift, fluid motion, she turned and slammed her fist into the nearest guard. The soldier collapsed. The entire chamber erupted into chaos. Jace and Cyrus ran. The mark of a traitor. The Zayari palace erupted into chaos. Jace's heart pounded as he ran. Cyrus beside him, her breath sharp, her grip firm on his wrist. Alarms blared, echoing through the grand halls. Guards shouted orders in their alien tongue. The Empress's voice boomed over the comms, cold and furious. "Capture Captain Cyrus. Kill the human." Jace gritted his teeth. Friendly people. Cyrus didn't respond. She was moving too fast, her mind racing, calculating a way out. They turned a corner, only to find themselves trapped. A squad of elite guards blocked the corridor, their energy blades hissing to life. Cyrus skidded to a stop, eyes flickering between the soldiers and Jace. She could fight them. She could escape, but not if she protected him. Her instincts screamed at her, "Leave the human behind. Save yourself." But then she looked down. The soulmate mark on her wrist was still glowing, still tied to him. A choice that had already been made. Her jaw clenched. "Stay close." Jace smirked, not planning on going anywhere. Then they attacked. The fight against the elite guard. Cyrus moved first. A flash of steel, a blade slicing through the air. She was faster than any human, her strikes precise, deadly. But the guards were prepared. Jace ducked as a blade sliced past his head, barely missing. Instincts kicked in. He grabbed a fallen Zayari weapon, the alien metal humming under his grip. He had no idea how it worked. But a fight was a fight. The battle blurred together, Cyrus dancing through the enemy, Jace blocking, countering, moving faster than he should have been able to. Then, without thinking, Cyrus grabbed his hand. A shockwave pulsed through them. The guards stumbled back, confused. Jace's vision sharpened. His muscles tightened. His body felt lighter, faster, stronger. Cyrus's eyes widened. The bond was doing something to him. But before they could understand it, a blast shook the palace. Cyrus's head snapped up. Her expression changed. The Empress had just activated the palace lockdown. They had minutes to escape, or they would be trapped forever. Running out of time, Cyrus pulled Jace through the corridors, weaving past ornate pillars and towering golden walls. Jace was still adjusting. The bond was changing him. He could feel it. He could see clearer, react faster, move like he had been trained for this his whole life. What the hell was happening to him? Cyrus's grip tightened. "We can't go through the main gates," she muttered. "They'll expect it." Jace gave her a sideways glance. "So what's the plan?" Cyrus hesitated. Then her voice dropped. "There's only one way out." Jace exhaled. "I already hate this." Cyrus didn't reply. She turned sharply, leading them to a massive glass chamber. Jace slowed. His stomach dropped. Beyond the transparent walls, nothing but open sky. The palace hovered thousands of feet above the ground. Jace let out a low whistle. "Yeah. No. This is a terrible idea." Cyrus gave him a sharp look. "It's the only idea." A metallic voice cut through the air. "Final phase of lockdown initiating. All exits will be sealed in 60 seconds. Cyrus's eyes locked onto his. "Do you trust me?" Jace smirked. "Not even a little." She rolled her eyes, then grabbed him and jumped, falling toward the unknown. The wind ripped past them, the city below rushing closer. Jace had been in a lot of life-threatening situations, falling to his death because of a glowing alien soulmate mark. Yeah, this was new. Xyra's twisted midair, one arm wrapped around Jace's waist while her free hand tapped a hidden device on her armor. A burst of energy erupted around them, a gravity stabilizer, slowing their descent. But it wasn't enough. Jace's chest tightened. He could feel it. They were still going to crash. The ground rushed toward them. Xyra's grip tightened. Jace squeezed his eyes shut. I really, really hate this plan. Impact. The aftermath. Jace's eyes flickered open. Everything hurt. The world was sideways. No, he was sideways, lying on cracked stone in the middle of what looked like an abandoned marketplace. Xyra groaned beside him, pushing herself up. Jace exhaled. Tell me we landed in the right place. Xyra wiped blood from her lip. We landed. That's good enough. Then, a sound. The hum of engines. Jace froze. Xyra's expression darkened. They both turned toward the sound. A massive black ship hovered in the sky, its insignia unmistakable. The Empress had sent bounty hunters. Jace pushed himself up. You have got to be kidding me. Xyra grabbed his wrist again. The mark between them flared. And deep inside Jace's bones, he felt something shift. Something wake up. Something not human. Xyra looked at him sharply. Jace, what are you? The ancient prophecy. The bounty hunter ship hovered above them, its sleek black hull reflecting the dim light of the alien marketplace. Jace's heart pounded. They had barely escaped the palace, barely survived the fall of death. And now, more enemies. Beside him, Xyra clenched her fists, her violet eyes flickering between the ship and the surrounding buildings. Jace noticed something. She wasn't scared. She was calculating. You know these guys? He asked, shifting into a defensive stance. Xyra exhaled sharply. The Empress's private enforcers. They don't take prisoners. Jace gritted his teeth. Figures. The ship's side doors slid open, and a group of Zayari bounty hunters leaped down. Tall, armored, their weapons already humming with energy. The leader, a towering figure with crimson eyes, stepped forward, his voice cold. Captain Xyra, you are ordered to return to the palace. The human will be eliminated. Jace sighed. Of course I will. The bounty hunter raised a weapon, and Xyra moved first. The fight in the ruins. Everything exploded into motion. Xyra darted forward, her blade flashing in the air, slicing through the first attacker's armor. Jace had no sword, no armor, nothing but instincts. But somehow, that was enough. He dodged, weaved, his body moving faster than it ever should have. One of the bounty hunters lunged, swinging an electro staff toward his head. Jace didn't think. His body reacted on its own. He caught the weapon mid-swing, twisting the enemy's arm, and slammed a powerful kick to his chest. The hunter flew backward, crashing into a pile of stone debris. Xyra saw it happen, and her breath hitched. Jace was moving like a Zayari warrior. No, faster. But how? The soulmate mark on her wrist pulsed, as if answering the question she was too afraid to ask. Jace didn't notice. He was too busy fighting for his life. One by one, the bounty hunters fell. The last one standing. The leader snarled in frustration. He pulled a small device from his belt and slammed it to the ground. A shockwave ripped through the air. Xyra staggered back, covering her ears as a low-frequency hum filled the marketplace. Jace froze. Something inside him burned, like his entire body was rejecting the sound. The bounty hunter smirked. We weren't sent to capture you, Xyra. He pointed at Jace. We were sent to test him. Xyra's blood ran cold. Jace's vision blurred. His muscles locked up, his veins burning from the inside. And then, everything went black. The hidden truth. Jace jerked awake. He wasn't in the marketplace anymore. He was somewhere else. Somewhere old. The room was dark, illuminated by the soft golden glow of strange symbols carved into the walls. A temple. He pushed himself up, his breathing unsteady. The last thing he remembered was Xyra, the bounty hunter, the mark burning. His chest tightened. Where was she? Before he could move, a voice echoed through the chamber. Not out loud. Inside his head. You have awakened. Jace's body stiffened. Slowly, he turned and saw figures standing in the shadows. Tall, cloaked in robes of gold and black, their faces hidden by ancient masks. Jace's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Who were they? The largest figure stepped forward. Do you know what you are? Jace exhaled sharply. I was really hoping one of you could tell me. The figures didn't react. The lead figure lifted a hand, and the golden symbols on the walls flared brighter. Jace's mark burned in response. He clenched his jaw, fighting back the sensation. Your kind was never meant to return, the figure said, his voice heavy with something Jace couldn't place. The Empress has rewritten history, but the past cannot be erased forever. Jace's stomach twisted. What was he talking about? The figure continued. You are proof of what they tried to destroy. Jace felt his breath catch. His entire body felt different since the moment Xyra's mark had appeared. Faster, stronger, not human. He swallowed. What am I? The figures stepped closer. The first of your kind. Xyra's mission. Meanwhile, Xyra's body hit the floor hard as she was thrown into a prison cell. Her breath was sharp, her muscles aching from the fight. She pushed herself up, glaring at the bounty hunter standing outside the cell. You have no idea what you've done, she spat. The hunter tilted his head. Don't I? Xyra clenched her fists. They had taken Jace. They had taken him to the temple. Which meant her mark flared on her wrist, the golden glow pulsing faintly. A whisper slid into her thoughts. Jace's voice. Xyra, where are you? Xyra exhaled sharply. The bond was growing stronger. She could still feel him. Which meant there was still time to save him. Her violet eyes narrowed. You picked the wrong human to mess with. She slammed her hands against the cell walls, and the metal groaned under her strength. The guards outside froze. Xyra smirked. The bond had given Jace power, but they forgot something important. It had given her power too. The hunt begins. The walls trembled as Xyra's hands pressed harder against the prison cell's metal frame. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears, but she wasn't scared. She was angry. They took Jace, and the bond between them, the mark that never should have existed, was still pulsing, still glowing on her wrist, telling her something they didn't realize. He was still alive. The guards outside her cell stared in shock as the reinforced walls groaned under the pressure of her touch. Xyra exhaled slowly. The power rushing through her veins was new, foreign, dangerous. But she knew one thing for certain. If they thought they could take her mate and keep him from her, they were dead wrong. With a final push, the walls exploded outward. The escape. The force of the blast sent the guards flying, their weapons clattering to the floor. Smoke filled the hallway, alarms screeching through the air. Xyra didn't hesitate. She moved fast, ducking past debris, grabbing a fallen plasma rifle, and taking off down the corridor. More guards rushed toward her, their eyes wide in panic. She's using the bond. Stop her. Xyra smirked. Try. She moved before they could react, her new strength making her faster than before. Her blade sliced through the first enemy's armor, and before the second could fire, she had already slammed the butt of the plasma rifle into his skull. They weren't ready for her, because the Empress had been so focused on Jace. She forgot Xyra was changing too. She wasn't just protecting Jace anymore. She was hunting. Jace's awakening. Jace's breath came sharp as he stood in the temple ruins, surrounded by the hooded figures. The golden symbols continued to glow, the energy humming in his bones. His fingers twitched. His body felt different, charged, like an unseen force was waiting to be released. The first of your kind. Jace clenched his jaw. What does that mean? The lead figure stepped forward, his deep voice unwavering. It means your people were never meant to be weak. Jace's stomach twisted. The history books on Earth said that humans had always been at a technological disadvantage compared to the Zayari Empire. That they were less evolved, less powerful, only surviving because of their tactical minds and relentless will. But what if that was a lie? Jace's fingers curled into fists. Why would the Empress hide this? The figure gestured toward the glowing temple walls. Because humans were once more than they are now. And you are proof that their evolution can begin again. A deep electric pulse raced through Jace's chest. His mark burned, but now he realized it wasn't pain. It was power, and it was waking up. Xyra's arrival. Back in the city, Xyra reached the temple's outer gates, her body still humming with raw energy. The moment she got close, the mark on her wrist flared brighter. She could feel him. The bond between them was stronger than ever. Then, a voice echoed over the city comms. The Empress's voice. Captain Xyra, surrender now, and the human will be spared. Resist, and he will be erased from history. Xyra stopped dead in her tracks. Jace was still inside. She could fight. She could storm the temple, take down the guards, get to him. But if she was wrong, if she lost, Jace would die. Her hands shook with rage. Then she did something unexpected. She lifted her communicator and responded. I'm not surrendering, but I'll make you an offer. A pause. The Empress's voice came through, low and intrigued. I'm listening. Xyra took a deep breath. You and I, one-on-one. No army, no weapons, just us. Asterisk, asterisk. The city fell silent. Then the Empress laughed. You think you can challenge me? Xyra's eyes burned with fury. I don't think. I know. The duel for freedom. The city held its breath. Xyra stood at the temple's outer gates, her breath steady, her heart a storm. Above her, the holographic projection of Empress Valsera flickered over the city skyline, her violet eyes burning with amusement and curiosity. You challenge me to single combat, the Empress mused. How bold, and how foolish. Xyra clenched her fists. The golden soulmate mark on her wrist was still glowing, the energy pulsing through her like a heartbeat. She wasn't the same warrior she was yesterday. She had been chosen by fate, by something older than the Empress herself. And she was ready. Accept the duel, Xyra said, her voice calm, or admit to your people that you fear me. A dangerous silence fell over the comms. Then the Empress laughed. Very well. We settle this the old way. Her gaze sharpened. One will walk away. The other will not. The city erupted in chaos. Jace's power awakens. Deep inside the temple ruins, Jace felt his body tremble. The moment Xyra had challenged the Empress, his mark had pulsed violently. He could feel her emotions, her determination, her fury. The bond between them was not just a link. It was something ancient. The robed figures surrounding him stepped back, sensing the shift in energy. The lead figure spoke, his voice calm, knowing. She fights for you. Jace's breathing slowed. Xyra was risking everything. For him. For them. A surge of raw power exploded inside his chest. The golden symbols on the temple walls burned brighter, responding to him, to what he was becoming. Jace clenched his fists. He wasn't going to stand here and wait. He was going to fight. The duel begins. The Zayari people gathered in the grand arena, their voices hushed in anticipation. Two warriors stood at the center. Xyra, dressed in her battle-worn armor, her blade sharp, her stance unshaken. And across from her, the Empress, tall, elegant, wrapped in dark silver armor that pulsed with ancient energy. She smirked. "Do you regret this yet?" Xyra didn't blink, not even a little. The duel began. The Empress struck first, moving like lightning, her blade slicing through the air with terrifying speed. Xyra dodged, her instincts sharper than ever. Clash. Spark. A dance of death. The battle blurred together, a flurry of steel and energy. Xyra fought harder than she ever had before, but the Empress was strong. Too strong. Every blow sent a shockwave through the arena. The Empress was toying with her. And then, the Empress's blade pierced Xyra's side. Xyra stumbled, her vision darkening. The crowd gasped. The Empress tilted her head, mocking. "You never stood a chance." Xyra collapsed to her knees. Her blood stained the arena floor. The Empress raised her blade for the final strike. And then, the sky cracked open. A shockwave of pure energy ripped through the air. A shadow dropped from above, landing between them. The arena fell silent. Jace stood up slowly, his body glowing with golden light, his mark burning brighter than the sun. He lifted his gaze to the Empress and smirked. "You forgot about me." The rise of the mark. The arena was silent. Jace stood between Xyra and the Empress, his body glowing with raw golden energy. His mark burned like a star, the pulsing light illuminating the shattered battlefield. Xyra gasped from where she had fallen, her body still weakened from the Empress's strike. But her violet eyes locked onto Jace, and in them she saw something impossible. Jace was no longer just human. Something inside him had awakened. The Empress narrowed her eyes, her lips curling in a mixture of intrigue and frustration. "You were not supposed to survive." Jace exhaled, rolling his shoulders. He felt power coursing through his veins, his body lighter, faster, stronger. He had no idea how, but he understood how to use it. He flexed his fingers. Golden threads of energy flickered between them. A smirk played on his lips. "Yeah, well, your plan sucks." The Empress's face darkened. She lifted her blade, and in an instant she attacked. The final battle begins. Jace moved before he could think. The Empress's blade swung toward his throat, but he saw it before it happened. Not just saw it, he felt it. His body twisted out of the way, his reflexes no longer just human. He wasn't dodging, he was predicting. Xyra's breath hitched. Jace was matching the Empress's speed. Strike, counter, dodge, attack. The battle became a blur of golden and violet sparks clashing as they moved faster than the eye could follow. For the first time in her reign, the Empress was not in control. The watching Zayari nobles whispered among themselves. "No human should be able to fight like this. What is he? The bond. It's changing him." And they were right. Jace's bond with Xyra wasn't just a symbol. It wasn't just a cultural tradition. It was a forgotten power, one that the Empress had erased from history, and now that power had returned. Xyra joins the fight. Xyra forced herself up, gripping her wound. She was weak, but she wasn't done. Her golden mark was still glowing. And she realized something. The bond wasn't just changing Jace, it was changing her too. Xyra's strength flooded back into her, faster than it should have. Her wound stopped bleeding. Her body restored itself, as if the injury had never happened. Her heartbeat synced with Jace's. He felt it too. Their minds aligned, their movements connected. Xyra grabbed her blade and lunged forward, fighting alongside Jace. The Empress's face twisted in frustration. Impossible. But the truth was clear. Jace and Xyra weren't just bonded. They were something new. And together, they were stronger than the Empress. The fall of an empire. The battle raged, the energy between Jace and Xyra growing stronger, feeding off one another. The Empress lashed out desperately, but her movements were slower now. She had spent centuries ruling through control, through fear. But fear couldn't stop fate. Jace's golden aura flared, his final strike slicing through her weapon, shattering her defenses. She staggered back, her breath sharp. For the first time, she looked afraid. Jace stepped forward, his eyes burning with something ancient, something powerful. This ends now. The final blow landed. A burst of golden light erupted through the arena. And when the dust settled, the Empress was gone. The aftermath. The watching Zayari stared in stunned silence. Their ruler was defeated. By a human. By a bond that should not exist. The High Council stepped forward, their faces pale with uncertainty. One of them finally spoke. "What are you?" Jace looked at Cerys. Cerys looked at Jace. And for the first time, they weren't just soldier and captain. They weren't just human and alien. They were something more. Something that could never be erased again. The new era. The grand arena was silent. Dust still floated in the air where the Empress had fallen, her reign shattered in a way no one thought possible. Jace stood tall, his body still humming with golden energy, the soulmate mark on his wrist glowing like a brand of destiny. Cerys stood beside him, her own mark pulsing in sync with his. For a moment, nobody moved. Then whispers rippled through the crowd. The Empress is gone. The bond is real. He defeated her. Jace's chest rose and fell as he scanned the sea of Zayari nobles and soldiers. Most of them had followed the Empress blindly, believing in the laws she created, the fear she instilled. And now, they were looking at him, waiting, watching. Cerys inhaled deeply. They're afraid. Jace exhaled. Good. But fear alone wasn't enough. Something had to change. The Council's demand. A group of Zayari elders stepped forward, their violet eyes filled with uncertainty and disbelief. One of them, an older woman dressed in deep royal blue, lifted her chin. Human. The word was spoken like it was something forbidden, something foreign. Jace met her gaze, unimpressed. "My name is Jace." The elder ignored him. "The Empress is gone, but her rule is not undone. The laws she created." Cerys stepped forward. The laws she created were built on lies. The elder hesitated. Cerys continued. "You saw it. We all saw it. The bond is real. And if the Empress feared it so much that she erased it from history, then we must ask ourselves why." The nobles shifted uncomfortably. Cerys's voice grew stronger. "For centuries, we have been told that humans are beneath us, that we are superior." She turned, her sharp eyes scanning the faces of her people. "But tell me, if that were true, why did the Empress fear one human more than an entire army?" Silence. Jace could feel it, the moment the belief system cracked. One noble stepped forward, his voice uncertain. "Then, what do you propose?" Cerys looked at Jace. Jace looked at her. Then, he turned back to the council and smirked. A new beginning. The rise of the bonded. The days that followed were tense, uncertain, filled with whispered debates and fearful glances. But something was shifting. Jace and Cerys didn't take the throne. They didn't need to. Instead, they changed the laws. The bond, once erased, once considered forbidden, was now acknowledged as truth. The war between humans and Zayari. Over. For the first time in history, the two species stood together as equals. And yet, Jace knew this wasn't the end. As he stood at the edge of the royal balcony, watching the stars, he felt something in his chest, a pull, a warning. Cerys stepped beside him. "You feel it too," she murmured. Jace nodded. "Yeah, because somewhere out there, in the darkest corners of space, others were watching. The Empress's rule was gone, but her allies weren't, and they would come looking. For revenge, for power, For the one human who was never supposed to exist. Jace smirked. Let them try. Xyra rolled her eyes. You're enjoying this too much. He turned to her, his mark still glowing faintly. We made history today. She held his gaze for a long moment. Then, finally, she smiled. Yes, she whispered. We did. The stars above them shimmered. A new era had begun. And Jace and Xyra, they were just getting started. The stars stretched endlessly above them, shimmering like unwritten stories waiting to unfold. Jace stood at the balcony's edge, feeling the weight of what they had just done. The war was over. The lies had fallen. A new era had begun. Beside him, Xyra watched the horizon, her golden mark still glowing softly. Jace smirked. So, what now? Xyra exhaled, a hint of a smile playing on her lips. Now, she turned to him, her violet eyes steady. Now we see what comes next. Far beyond the capital, in the dark corners of space, shadows stirred. The Empress was gone. But her secrets, her allies, they were still out there. And they would come. Jace clenched his fists, his mark pulsing with quiet energy. Let them come. He and Xyra had already made history. Now, they would shape the future. The night sky shimmered, stretching far and wide. And beneath it, two warriors stood side by side, ready for whatever came next. The end.